All right. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for jumping on and hanging out with us for a little bit. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you guys had a good day. Elaine and I got to hang out for a little bit, and we um, we had a good day together. Let's just put it that way. So
Fantastic.
Sean and I have got together. We put this one more lesson together on our part of our emotion series on love, and I guess when we first started talking about this, it was like, which avenue are we kind of go with this, right? It was like, um, is because we know there's a passionate side, and we know there's also the bigger aspect of what we were kind of focusing on was the self love too. We can't forget that, right? So once again, as we were putting this lesson together, things were things started to come to light. Other questions started being asked, and but again, it was I think Sean has put together some really good information on this one. And since it is Valentine, and in case you haven't heard that doTERRA is actually doing a flash BOGO sale right now, where if you buy a bottle of Rose Touch for $70, you get a free bottle of Jasmine Touch. That's like a 52 or $54 savings right there. So it's only for 3 days. It's today, tomorrow, and the 16th. So you'll want to jump on and jump on that. Rose is a really good oil to have in your arsenal, in your toolbox, because it does so many different things than just the skin. So as a matter of fact, we're probably going to talk about that a little bit tonight.
You think?
Why not, right? Um, John, do you have anything before we jump into the slides?
No. But why do you keep picking all these emotions that really throw me down multiple rabbit holes? I
Well,
feel I feel like I'm put through a blender sometimes.
that's part of figuring it out, I guess, and realizing, have a little bit more self-realization going on.
And while I say that in jest, but I truly appreciate the challenges because it like one of the things that we uncovered was we think of one or two, maybe three types of love, but we found that there may be more than that. So yeah, it was definitely enlightening. And um, well, there's some other comments that I have that I'll get into in the slides. So
All
I'll wait
right.
there.
Without further ado, we will share the slides. You guys able to see that?
Yes, it's not on full display though.
Not yet, but I'm going to give you slide control as
Okay.
well. See what that does. Come on. There we go.
Yep, now we're good.
All right. All right, so this was a really good slide that Sean is going to lead us off with. Love does not begin and end the way we seem to think it does. Love is a battle. Love is a war. Love is a growing up. I found that to be an interesting sentence to be thrown in there, and it is. It's love seems to be in a constant change, or maybe a constant flux. I don't know for some of us. But as always, we're going to kick off with a little bit of a declaration here. We, as wellness advocates, we're
Call from N.
who's that? Okay. Anyway, declaration from us to you is this is not our intent, nor are we in any way attempting to diagnose, cure, advise, or prescribe for any human disease, ailment, injury, infirmity, deformity, pain, or any other condition, physical or mental, real or imaginary, by any means or instrumentality. This is stuff that we have found that has been very effective. It's been very beneficial for us, and we're just grateful that we are blessed to have these. And we want to just pass this information on to you in the hopes that you find some of that same benefits. Sean, I will kick it over to you at this point.
Very good. So, when I started reading, and you're going to see that there's over 32 references, I looked at close to 60, 70 different articles. And one of the things that kept coming through is some were very positive, and some were like, love, just stay away from it. And so I got this impression that love is a double-edged sword. So there is the pleasurable side, but there is a painful side at it at the same reason, or at the same time, I should say. The thing was, it's like, okay, but why? Which was one of those rabbit holes that I went down through. And what I began to find out is a lot of it has to deal with our wonderful neurotransmitters, but also our rogue AI system that we've often talked about, ego. So, I know you gave me control there, Angelo, but for some reason, my keys aren't doing it. Okay.
There you go.
So, thank you. So take a look at these numbers, and they each have some significance. So somebody asked a DJ up in Canada, well, how many songs are there about love? And he says, don't know. So he went through his collection and he found over 1,187 songs that dealt with love. Wordwall did the same thing, and they looked at poems and found 67 love poems. IMDb, and those of you who like movies and television and want to know the nitty gritty and things of that nature, awesome site, Internet Movie Database. They looked and found 100 television shows and movies dealing with love. But this last number, 8, it's like, okay, we've talked about the 3 main media, but where does the number 8 come into play? And that's where we talk about the types of love. And Angelo found another number being 7. I found that number and I kept reading, and then I started saying 8 being a recurring theme. And so that's what we opted to go with. Now, you know, we don't give our ancient civilizations a lot. I mean, think about what came out of Mesopotamia, what came out of the Romans, what came out of the Greeks. And the Greeks are the ones that established this list. Now, I am going to refer you back to the notes because there is a little bit more detail, but all of these. Now, the agape or spiritual love, that's the one that is truly the most unconditional love. All right. Eros is that romantic, where most of us typically will fall into. The philia is what we share amongst our friends. There is no sexual connotation there, but you know what? We accept them for what they are. Now, when we see this Felicia, and you say, oh, wow, self-love. Wow, you must be narcissistic. No, this is understanding that giving love and receiving love is a two-way street. But if you do not start off with yourself and have that healthy mindset or heart set in this case, self-love can't occur. And the other thing is, if you do not have this type of love, all the other ones are going to fail. All right, they don't exist. Now, interestingly, I'll get down to there in a moment. Storage is familiar love. Now, this is what we have within our families. And then, of course, if you're in a relationship for any length of time, and Angelo, can I put you on the spot right now?
Sure.
How long have you been married to Elaine?
This October, it'll be 23 years.
23 years. So we could consider that a pretty long time when the average marriage right now is lasting 7 years at most. So you've broken a record. So you have this pragma type love. That's that enduring love. And congratulations to you and Elaine. Sure. Now, all of us have been smitten at one point in time, and that's where we had ludus or puppy love. But the ones that, while that spiritual love was considered very scary to the Greeks, the one that was the most feared was the mania. And we've seen in newspapers where somebody becomes obsessed with somebody to the point that if somebody shows any other interest, then they wind up causing a murder. So it is a unhealthy form of love. All right. So let's get into how does love begin and sustain itself. All right. So at some point in time, we have to go back to our basic sex hormones. Now, interestingly, men do produce estrogen and females also produce testosterone. It's just not predominant levels that create the male and female characteristics that we biologically see. However, when we start secreting testosterone and estrogen, particularly when we see somebody, it's like, wow, I really like their features, or I like the sound of their voice, or whatever that trigger is, this starts to, these levels surge, and it's like, yeah, I got the nerve, I'm going to go ask. And so they engage in this two-way street. Then eventually, what happens is you get swept off your feet. And now we have dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin coming into play. Now, what's interesting is for about the first 7 months, serotonin, while it will come into play, the brain actually says, all right, I'm going to put you on pause. All right, I'm going to totally ignore you. But dopamine and norepinephrine are very, very addictive to the brain. Dopamine is like cocaine, and the norepinephrine is your amphetamine or your speed. So you're getting two different stimulants going on here. One of the things that does is dopamine is what makes you dumb. All right. Think about things that you say or that you've done early on in your relationships. And think about the sweaty palms and the racing heart and just can't sleep. And that's all norepinephrine coming into play. And like I said, after about 7 months, the brain says, okay, I got to back down a little bit or I'm going to burn myself out. And it allows serotonin to come in. And this starts to make things come into a little bit more clearer vision. And this serotonin allows us to start seeing the person for who they really are. There was a physician who made a statement that when two people are present, there's actually 6 people present in that relationship. And it's each as they see themselves, each as they see the other person, but more importantly, each as they truly are. And this is where the serotonin starts to pull back that veil and allow that second or that last relationship of each as they really are to come forth. Now, at some point in time, we then start moving into, okay, this looks like it's going to last. And so we typically start seeing these levels arise around 12 months into a relationship. And we have to give thanks to the oxytocin and vasopressin. Now, we've talked about oxytocin before in the trust lecture, and we know this is the nurturing, cuddling, trust hormone. All right, but vasopressin. Now, Angelo and I know this as medical providers as antidiuretic hormone. And it's like, what the heck would antidiuretic hormone, which controls our fluid levels in our blood, what would that have to do with love? Well, somebody was looking at 2 different types of voles. And what they found out is there was one set of voles that was very, very monogamous. And then there was another group of voles that were, you know what? They just played the field and played the field and played the field. Very promiscuous, let's say. So the scientists started going, why? What's going on here? And what they found is the oxytocin, the vasopressin. And it also, the voles' brains are structurally similar to human brains. And they said, okay, what happens? Can we actually flip this? So the voles that were normally monogamous, when they altered the receptors or chemically reduced the oxytocin and vasopressin, the voles that should be normally be monogamous became very promiscuous. Likewise, if we took the promiscuous moles and increase voles, and increased their oxytocin and increased their vasopressin levels, they became monogamous. So there's questions, and Angelo and I had some sidebar conversations. It's too bad that there's like no test that we can do when we're getting into a deep relationship to find out, is this person going to stray on me or not? Now that balloon that goes off is, if we take a look, that agape is that spiritual or unconditional love. The philia is our friend love. Our storge is our love between our family members. And that fiducia is that self-love. That all is mediated through primarily oxytocin and to a lesser degree vasopressin. So again, if we have any issues with those neurotransmitters, those four forms of love are going to be significantly impacted. Any comments that you have there, Angelo, that you can think of?
No, I have nothing.
Okay. All right. So the other thing is, as I said, we just saw that love is pretty much a positive thing, but you know what? Sometimes love hurts. Angela and I chuckled about this quote about Hallmark versus Lifetime. It's like we have to put that in for sure. But Vaknin also found out that love is a form of a substance abuse. And when you think about it, think about those dopamine and that norepinephrine. They are very addictive neurotransmitters, and we can't seem to get enough. And eventually, when we move into that last phase, the oxytocin, the vasopressin, they also are addictive. Now, what's interesting is the body will downregulate the dopamine and the norepinephrine. However, once oxytocin comes into play, it does not downregulate it unless there is an absolute something that emotionally will break that trust or that bonding, which I found interesting. Now, these three articles go into a lot of points of why love tends to fail or hurt. And just a quick overview, and this hour that we have with you can't do it justice, so please go into the notes and go read these articles. But one of the things is that sometimes we allow that infatuation, that physical beauty, to wipe us off of our feet. I can remember growing up, my mom often would buy those love stories. And who was the hunk back in the day? The long blonde hair, the big chiseled chest, you know, the women just swooned over him. Fabio, was it?
Yeah, he was one.
Yeah. So he was the model for a lot of those covers. And it's like, okay, but, and I don't know Fabio, but who knows? He could have been a real nitwit and very not a nice person. And then once that serotonin starts to pull back and allows us to see the person for who they really are, yeah, so there's sometimes unrealistic expectations. there are some people that just can't be loved. And no matter what we do, we see this in those people that like to run in and save the day. If we are those fixer type people, we may have unrealistic expectations, and so the love is going to fail. We get to a point where some people have some very strong flaws, but if we truly love them and we get into that agape or that spiritual love, that doesn't matter. But for some people, it's that thorn that is constantly poking them and they can't tolerate that. So, failing to accept their flaws. Um, Sometimes we hurt our partners, and that may be either intentional or unintentional by things that we say, things that we do. And one of the things that most marriage counselors are going to tell you, the bottom line when they have people in counseling that they find out is they do not communicate. And communication is so, so important. And Angelo, I'm sure you and Elaine can attest that you have to talk it out. Otherwise, things don't go so well. How about it?
True story there. You have to, and sometimes you have to have those what we call the critical conversations or crucial conversations, where it's the conversations you don't want to have, but you know you have to have them.
Yep.
And along the lines of the communication, one of the things we have learned about our relationship is that there has been times where one of us or the other one was really, really upset, really, really mad. And we knew that if we started to speak, we may say something that we didn't necessarily want to say or didn't intentionally mean to hurt somebody. So we would not have that conversation, and we would go a day or two without having any form of communication, because we're still trying to sort stuff out in our brain. But eventually, yes, we have to sit down and have that communication.
Yeah, and you mentioned a good thing, because one of the things that I'm seeing a lot in my readings is practice the pause. Because if we are spontaneous, we're going to say those things that are going to create irreparable damage. Um, that being said, sometimes as we start to really get to know that person, when that last pair, all right, each as they really are, we're going to start doubting, did we make the right choice? I know I've been there, and my relationships. And then we start projecting into the future, and we start developing that anxiety. And it's like, oh my gosh, I need to bail out. And sometimes that anxiety is good because it should be pushing us to make a change or to grow. But if you're the person that decides to take that easy road out, and you know, we're done, and you bail, and that may or may not be a good thing. You may be losing that one true love that really would be good for you. And lastly, is that sometimes we bring the past into the present. So we may have had several significant relationships. And then what we do is, oh, well, my ex number, whatever it was, used to do this, and you don't do that any time. That comparison, that's not fair to the other person. We should never compare somebody to ourselves or to somebody else. Um, and so that needs to be left go. But if you keep bringing that up, that's the problem. And that's where our egos come into play, because our egos want to protect ourselves. But the bottom line is we need to put that aside and saying, okay, I'm going to allow you to try to tell me, but at the end of the day, we need to have that altruistic, that agape type love to come through to allow ourselves to move forward. And with anything that we do, um, love is going to force us to make change. And people don't like change because there's often a loss. All right. For example, one of the big things is the loss of our independence, our loss of our freedoms, because now I not only have to think about myself, All right. And our ego wants to make us number one, and everybody else can be 37 and beyond. But when we are in a relationship and we love somebody, we have to think about them and put their needs, um, if not equal or if not ahead of ours, but at least equal with us. So, any other comments there?
No, that was just about a page and a half of notes that you did in 5 minutes. So that was there's a lot of there's a lot more information that goes with that.
Yeah.
As much as you talked about that, it still dives a little bit deeper in the notes.
Yeah, and and again, that's the notes is literally the cliff notes of the article. So the articles do much better justice.
Okay.
So Angelo, it's
All
back
right.
to you.
I'll take this part here. So again, we know that the heavy emotions on the left, and we want to be over on the positive emotions over on the right, and it's a journey to get there. Please, please, please know that this is a slow process, and as bad or as much as we want to be on the right hand side, we have to take the time to process through our emotions. So let's say that we want to be over here, but before we can get there, maybe we're hanging out over here at the anger side, and we're working on emotions. We're using the techniques that we've been talking about through the series, and as we kind of work through those emotions, we find ourselves, well, okay, we moved up to worry, but we're still falling way short of that positive expectations or that happiness that we're looking for. That's okay. You gotta take the small wins. You gotta take this as a shift. And like Sean and I were talking the other day, if we went from the heavy, really kind of the heavy emotions all the way over to the lighter emotions without experiencing or without working through or processing, it's almost like we wouldn't know how to handle that correctly. So take the time to process through these emotions as you work through and try to get to a better spot, or just make that progress.
The one thing that comes to mind there, Angelo, if we can go back a slide, please, is think of this as a staircase. All right. And and I'm just pulling a number out. There's 13 stairs. Well, if you're at the bottom and you try to jump up to stair 13, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. You need to literally take each step along the way to process through those emotions. And we've talked about this a number of times.
And why didn't you come up with that analogy like a year ago? That's fantastic, though. That is absolute truth.
Yeah. And again, as I'm sitting here, and beside me is the one book, The Inner Work. And we talked about this the other night. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing this, and it's like, oh, my intuition is telling me steps. This is an analogy we can use right now.
Maybe we need to change this slide into steps versus
maybe
semicircle.
Yeah.
So here's some of the emotions that we talk about when we pull out the emotions wheel, and we look at love. These are some of the oils that they talk about, and we have talked about every single one of these through the course of the series. I did dive into and find some other oils. Ultimately, I thought, cool, we'll introduce some other oils to this. But as I was reading them, I found out that they didn't really fit. They weren't speaking to me, and I stuck with the oils that we pretty much talked about already at some point. So let me just kind of reiterate some of those things that we talked about. Of course, the first oil that I'm going to talk about here is Forgive. This is not only for you to forgive others, but sometimes we need this to forgive ourselves. Sean was talking about that self-love, and it's easy for us to deflect and make it maybe somebody else's problem, or maybe this is the individual that is causing me my problems. But is that really the truth? We don't want to blame others, but we do want to, like Sean was saying, if you don't have that self-love, you can't move on from that. You're not going to be able to love others properly. So this is one of these good oils that kind of helps with that, takes those mistakes and offenses and kind of help you to meet up with give yourself a little bit of forgiveness, give yourself a little bit of kindness, and then project that onto others, right? Forgive is an oil that comes in both the touch blend and the full dose. It's a 5 milliliter bottle. You can diffuse it. You can use it topically. I have some diffuser blends there you can see. But when you're looking at the positive properties, I found this to be pretty enlightening too. Of course, it's forgiving, but if we want to feel free, loving, have a better understanding, be a little bit more tolerant, and a little bit more empathetic. A lot of people have the ability to be sympathetic, but sometimes we're not sure, they don't know how to be empathetic. Maybe this is one of those oils that can help. And the funny part was when I was doing this, the empathetic theme seemed to be one of the positive properties with the oils as I talked about them. Geranium, again, we talked about this during the trust session, but this is an oil that can be used aromatically, topically, and internally. It can be used neat, but you might want to consider diluting it if it's going to be used topically. Several diffuser blends there for you to choose from. But when we're looking at geranium, this helps facilitate trust. We know trust is something that can be it's tough to gain and easily destroyed sometimes. So when we have to rebuild that trust, or if we want to have a stronger sense of a relationship or a stronger love, it all starts with a good foundation of trust. And this is a really good oil for you to kind of build those feelings on. When you look at those positive emotions, we see that it does have emotional healing. There's that word empathetic again. But it's forgiving, it's gentle, and it allows you to open up yourself a little bit, right? At the root, geranium heals the heart, instills that unconditional love, and it fosters that trust. And if you have no idea where you should apply this oil or how to use it, just put some over your heart. I've seen where a couple different things where you can do it in a plus sign, you can do it in a clockwise circle. Just apply it over your heart, and this is going to help you process some of those feelings and maybe soften that anger and enable you to trust somebody a little bit more. Time, I almost didn't keep this one in there, but this one is it. As I was reading into it, I said, well, I think this is a keeper here. This is a really good oil to help cleanse your emotions, your emotional body, and it kind of taps into stuff that's been buried for a long time. This kind of reaches really deep down into your body, into your soul, and it's going to help you resolve some of this negativity, whether that negativity is about yourself or about somebody else. I feel like this is a really good oil to help clean your feelings, the way you feel about yourself, and then you'll be able to project a better attitude and have better relationships once we clean up the way we feel internally. As that heart opens up, you're not only able to receive the love, but you can offer the forgiveness that people are looking for. Maybe they're not even looking for forgiveness, but you're able to forgive, and then you're able to process that emotion more, and you can move on. I have the oil can be used aromatically, topically, or internally. Again, there's several diffuser recipes there for you. If you do want to use it topically, this is really good on the bottoms of the feet or over the sacral area, or apply it to your chest. Look at the the positive emotions of it. again, there's that word forgiving. It helps you be a little bit more tolerant. It helps you be more open-hearted, understanding, and it helps with that emotional release. Rose. So this one is known as the Queen of Oils. This has actually the highest vibration than any of the other oils. And I know Sean can talk about this much better than I am because he's much more educated in this aspect. But every oil has a vibration, and rose is known to have the highest vibration. And this helps you or invites you to have this unwavering, unchanging, unconditional love. This is the type of love that actually heals the heart. You can begin to feel this. It helps begin to feel the unconditional love and the acceptance. As you start to feel this, the heart begins to soften a little bit. As the heart fully opens, love will just start flowing freely with you. You're going to lose some of that. You're going to be open to more trusting. The emotional balance, if you're looking for somebody that may be a little bit isolated and you want to be loved, then this is a good oil to use to get you to have that shift happen. I got some more than a handful of diffuser recipes up there. But again, when you look at the positive emotions that this rose oil will help with, is making you feel loved, compassionate, healing, tenderhearted, accepted. It got that empathy again. And also helps with receiving the divine love. And again, in the middle there, you can see some other options to use that oil. A couple others to use that could come into consideration. Myrrh, that comes in a 15 milliliter, or it also comes diluted in a myrrh touch, which I think is fantastic because I don't know if anybody's ever used myrrh oil out of the bottle. Once you open it up and you get those initial drops out, and if you don't use it very often, it may be difficult to get that cap off. It comes out very slow. It's a very, very thick oil. So the rollerball may be a better option for you, but when it comes to myrrh, this kind of helps with our connection to our mother, or the connection to Mother Earth. Excuse me. When you have that disturbance, when there's this disconnect, this can help bridge that gap and kind of heal that disturbance a little bit. This can help, it helps the soul to feel the love and the nurturing and that presence of the mother. It can help you feel a little bit safer. It can help you feel a little bit more secure. And again, it just provides that connection and reestablishes that connection that may have been broken. Breathe is a really good oil too, because what I found is breathe oil helps release the pain and grief. You can literally be just filled with sadness, and it's to the point where it basically hurts to breathe. When we breathe in and breathe out, when the effectively breathe out, we should be it's actually an avenue to release some of our emotions. And if we're not breathing correctly, we're not going to be able to kind of offload or get rid of those kind of heavy feelings, and it's going to kind of prevent us from releasing those. If you're somebody that's feeling very unloved, this can help encourage the release of that grief, of that sadness, and it helps you to receive that genuine love, and it actually helps with the breathing and the healing. So again, this comes in a 15 milliliter, or as you guys know that are here, Breathe comes in many different forms. There's many different ways to use it. You can't use this one internally unless you have the drops, but if you have the Breathe stick, the rollerball, the oil, we diffuse Breathe every night as part of our one of the things we diffuse every night is just to help keep our sinuses open so we breathe easier, but it's also helps really good with help releasing some of those emotions. When it got to the affirmation parts, we've talked about this a lot, and normally we have talked about different affirmations, little sayings that we could say, and we talk about saying it 3 times, and we have to say it out loud, and that we want to have a certain tone when we say the affirmations. Sean forwarded me this, and I just thought this was fantastic. I thought this was I liked it immediately. And again, when we talk about self-love, it kind of rifles through all of that from top to bottom. And the way we do this one is when we inhale, we say, I am. Now, I know it's hard to say something out loud when you're inhaling, but you can say it quietly. But as you exhale is where you say that last word. So inhale is like, I am. And then when you exhale, today. And I am loved. I am wealthy. I am secure. And as you go through all of these, you get down to the bottom where he says, I am love. And Sean, you had somebody ask you, well, isn't the I am loved and I am love the same thing? And what was your response to that?
Yeah. So there's a part that we know that people, love is a two-way street. And you've said that earlier about with you and your relationship with Elaine. And there is a part that we receive. So that would be the first love. And we're showing gratitude when we recognize that. But the last one is the one where we send out this big energy bomb out into the universe where we say, I am love, and really emphasize that because you are loving not only yourself, but all the people in your lives. So there is a difference there, and it's the intention that goes behind each of those words.
Yeah, intention is huge when it comes to doing affirmations. No matter which word you're doing, whether you're saying a statement or if you're doing it this way, intention is huge. All right, Sean, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks. So we want love to exist in our lives. And again, we know that there's those 8 different forms of love. So how do we do it? Well, first and foremost, we have to start with taking care of ourselves. If it does not start with us, love is not going to come through and exist. So number 1 is we have to have a proper diet. Well, why is that so important? Well, where do our neurotransmitters come from? From the foods that we eat. Hopefully we're eating those good, healthy, wholesome, nutrient dense foods so that our bodies can make the appropriate neurotransmitters. Mindfulness. We have to have those intentions. We have to give ourselves that quiet time to just focus in on ourselves. And again, it can start off with simply just walking, but not listening to anything else and just paying attention to heel toe as we walk. Getting that understanding and just allowing our bodies and our minds to decompress. And exercise ties into this because we know that when we properly exercise, both with strength training as well as cardiorespiratory aerobic activities, that exercise helps our nervous system. It also helps our neurotransmitters. It helps our physical heart at the physical level as well as an emotional level. And so it all starts tying into ourselves. And this is one thing that I'm critical of the medical community is that we don't do a good job when we counsel patients on these first 3 things. And as Angelo mentioned about practicing the pause, and there you have sometimes you need to have those critical or crucial conversations. Communication is the bottom line. I was just finished a emergency management course the other day, and one of the things that we talked about is how often communication is what bumbles everything up. And so we have to have that good communication occurring. So in the notes, there are a number of ways that we talk about how to modulate the neurotransmitters. However, some of these neurotransmitters are very, very potent. And we need to let you know that you should check with your healthcare practitioner, because you may be on a medication that dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin could be impacted. For example, serotonin, if you get too high of serotonin levels, you can have some very, very serious health effects and potentially fatal. And of course, Angela and I don't want to see that. We love you too much. And I say that with true sincerity, and I'm sure Angelo feels the same way.
Absolutely.
So again, take a look at, and there's links, and several of them are like multiple pages, and it goes through. I think all of them are research-based or have been reviewed by a physician. So I trust that material. But again, if you decide to go down and employ those things, please make sure that you're doing it safely. So one of the other things is that, and ties into that communication, is work that was done by Dr. Gary Chapman. Now, he has identified love languages, and there's love languages for kids, there's love languages for teens, and then there's love languages for adults. And his latest work was on love languages for families. Yes, I did some more research today, Angelo. But the bottom line is, across all age groups and of course within family, are these 5 different areas. All right. So the other thing that in later works and later research that Dr. Chapman found out is that most people will have a primary, and there will also be a secondary love language. So part of that communication is understanding how your partner needs to be loved and how they express love. And once you figure that out, it moves forward. And again, his work is phenomenal. I can't do it justice other than to, hey, here are some highlights. There are a number of, if you're not sure where do you fall in, there are online tests that are relatively decent. I took several of them and consistently got the same score. So there's some validity out there, which is important. But first of all, what are the words of affirmation? What are you saying to that person that makes them feel good about themselves? And what are you saying about yourself that makes you feel good? In our video that we have here, it's an act of service. So the tramp, by rolling that meatball over, that's an act of service there. And it's could also be formed as giving a gift. And so the lady is receiving that. And think about it. They are enjoying their time. So that quality time is coming into play. And at the very end, as they, right there, we have that physical touch. All right. There are some people that they just want to be held and cuddled. There are other people that quality time is sitting there and maybe playing cards or watching a movie. You may not have to physically touch one another, but just spending that time with them. There are other people that, you know what, vacuuming, all right? If there's divisions of labor, but you know what, I know my wife or my husband doesn't like to vacuum. I know they had a bad day, but vacuuming needs to be done. Hey, I'm going to do that. So that would be an act of service. And again, what words can you share with one another to make them feel good about themselves? And sometimes, and we're going to find out on a later slide, it's the little stuff that makes the difference.
Yeah, a little bit more on Dr. Chaplin there. His books, the online tests are good, but the books that he's written really go dive a little bit deeper and
Oh, absolutely.
give you a little bit more meat to go with the potatoes, and it gives helps give you a better understanding of what all of this stuff is. And like you were saying, Sean, it's good for you to know this as the what type of how you like to what's your love language, but also you got to know your significant other's love language. It helps when you have a better understanding of that. It's actually easier to make that, to have that relationship, because you know what makes your spouse or your significant other feels good. If it's simple words of affirmation, if it's that act of service, once you know that, like you said, it's the little things that go a long way.
Yeah. So, kind of some summaries here. So, again, we have to be thankful for the big things, but sometimes, and one of the things that I've been learning as I've taken this journey with Angelo, it's sometimes the smaller things that that have been the most significant for me. Um, and again, what brings you and your significant other together? And sometimes we get so busy in our day-to-day lives that we forget, how did we even wind up here, right? Um, be aware of your need to nag and control. This is something that shows up a lot in marriage counseling, is that there is one person that is just nag, 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 nag. And the other person finally just says, you know what? I want out because I can't deal with this. So if you're that controlling type person, that type A domineering person, maybe we need to throttle back a little bit on that. All right. When you tell your partner a personal story or a private secret, that is literally making yourself as naked as possible, not from removing the clothing, but that emotional nakedness is what truly makes us vulnerable. And many of us, we may be bashful and it's like, oh, well, I have to have the lights off to take the clothing off if we're going to engage in sexual relationships. But that emotional relevation, that nakedness is a whole different level and makes us most vulnerable. And this is where, if we can get to that level, we're going to make that oxytocin surge. All right. Do new and exciting things together as a couple. Sometimes we hear about, oh, well, I'm in a slump and I need to do something to spice things up. It might be something as simple as learning a new card game. Yeah, you might like cards, but I've never played this game. Let's learn it. Or changing your routine up, that, after dinner, we do the dishes and then we just kind of slump down in front of the TV and become numb to the world. You know what? Let's go outside. Let's listen to the transition of day sounds to night sounds, watch the sunset, something like that. Knowing those acts of kindness, what are those love languages, and just throw them in there randomly. The big thing is, don't make it predictable. All right. That's what really, that spontaneity is what really makes it so much more meaningful. You know what? Hugs and a kiss, it releases so much oxytocin, and also that dopamine and norepinephrine. And it's amazing what it can do. I know from nursing perspective, we are taught therapeutic touch. And for me, hugs are one of the things that I really enjoy doing. And so that is something that I find. And here's a little tidbit. When you hug somebody, you want to go towards our left side. So like right now, if I were to hug Angelo, my head is going to be going over towards his left shoulder. And what this does is it brings my heart and his heart closer together. And our hearts emit electromagnetic field, and it's very, very powerful. And when you do that, it allows us to become more in sync with one another. But if you switch it over, that my head goes over to his right side, our hearts aren't touching, and we don't get that synchronicity. Once I learned about this and I paid attention and I've switched it up and I've taught other people about this, and they go, oh my gosh, I can't hug anybody but going to the left anymore. Sometimes we are engaged in an occupation or a hobby, and if we don't support our significant other in this, they don't feel loved, and sometimes they just need that nurturing. Now, agreed, we know that there's sometimes you got to get out of that job because it's just killing you. But if it's a job that they do enjoy, and with anything, there are times that that job becomes a what's the word I'm looking for here? A burden. Not to the point that we want to quit, but it's like, yeah, it's really tough. Give them that support and remind them of why they chose that pathway. All right. And if you can find something that is unique and creative, show the person you're loving that way. And it may be something very silly. It may be something very serious. Experiment. All right. And that's one of the other things that helps keep things new and alive. In some ways, you want to keep your partner guessing. We won't make you tell stories there, Angelo. Anything
Okay.
you want to comment here? Anything you can think of to add to this?
No, what I really liked on this was surprise your partner with the acts of kindness. I had the obligatory need to get flowers for Elaine today, and she actually said, no, it's better when you give me flowers when I'm not expecting it. So that's exactly, what it's supposed to be like. And just, those creative ways, those unique ways of expressing your love, that could be something from anything from, I can't tell you the number of times that I've come out in the morning to make the coffee and Elaine has a little note for me right there. I've tried to reciprocate on that, but I'm not nearly as good at it as she is. But just to see those little notes, it's the little things you said that, like you said, that mean a lot.
Yep. All right, Angelo, let's wrap this up.
Yeah. So as we were looking at this, and Sean had this quote up there, there's only one happiness in life, is to love and to be loved. And that's a very, very true statement. As Elaine and I were looking at this, Elaine goes, what about First Corinthians, right? First Corinthians 13:13 says, these three things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love. I think there's so much truth in all of that. And it's not always going to be easy for us. Some days are definitely going to be harder than others. But when we're able to start loving ourselves a little bit more, and then we're able to help others and love others, I think that is going to make it a better world. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this right here. So Sean, that just about wraps it up then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Does. So let me know, guys. Any questions that you guys have? Yeah, Lori threw in the comments, love the affirmation. That's all Sean right there. He was the one that found it. He actually shared that with me personally, and I was like, nope, I'm taking that and putting it over into the slides. So, any questions for us? I'm going to take that as they are thoroughly enjoyed tonight and they are ready to go do things for their significant others and their friends and family.
Yeah. Normally we have some chatter. That's surprising.
Well,
or did we just overwhelm them, which love can be?
I think they're a little overwhelmed. Well, if they don't have...
Hello.
Hello.
Judy was here, but she has to go because she has to go love on her neighbor who had surgery.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So she's going out to spread the love.
All right. Awesome, Judy.
I think she's coming back, or else she's going to the bathroom. One of the two.
All right, Angela, I think you froze up there.
Did I? Am I frozen?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.